Hey everyone, welcome back to SDRescue Live. We are here again on Monday morning at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. I am joined once again by my co-host Grayson Fulbright. How's it going? He's live from Vietnam.
It's going well. Episode 9, we're one away from 10, so good news there. And I'm really excited for this one. I think, recap on this email, it has all of the pieces, I think, in terms of what an email needs. And Austin and I are going to go over today on some advice on structure and how to improve some of the areas that they use in their email. So I'm really excited today. And thanks, Austin, for joining me once again.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. So today we are going to be looking at an email that has a lot of good pieces. If you're trying to storytell, if you right now are reaching out with an email that tells a narrative or want to add more narrative to your story, you're going to stick around. This is going to be a great episode. This email actually attempts to do that really well. And we're going to, I don't want to say really well, but it does attempt to do that. And we're going to show you how you can level up your storytelling in this episode. Don't forget to follow SD Revolution on LinkedIn or connect with Grayson or I. Send us your cold emails. You can come join us on the show if you'd like, or just have us look at it. We'd love to do that. But for now, let's jump right into the email. Okay, so I'll scroll up here. Spoilers, that's the rewrite. All right, so this was an email I received. It says, "Hi, Austin. Big data, artificial intelligence, and identity resolution are dramatically changing how both B2B and B2C firms attract leads and grow clients. My team and I have spent the past 8 years studying what works and how to apply this technology to generate more leads, sales, and profits. I've outlined the 3 mistakes that I fear will hurt your sales the most in 2020. They are ignoring the impact of artificial intelligence on your sales process, advertising to the haystack and not the needles, missing the shift to people-based marketing. You can read my report here, no opt-in is required, and learn how to leverage big data, artificial intelligence, and identity resolution to grow your business. I hope you will find this information helpful." All right, let's scroll down here to our color codes. I'll keep all the color codes intact. Awesome. So let's get into this here. The first thing we see that I like is that they do go right into the purple, right? So we see here purple is storytelling, and like I teased a little bit in the beginning, that they do try to storytell. They try to set the stage and set the discussion around big data, artificial intelligence, and identity resolution, changing how B2B and B2C companies attract leads and grow clients. The problem is immediately after they set the stage, they start pitching themselves. So they try to go for a little bit of a credibility play by saying they've spent 8 years studying it, which I think, looking at the email, they're trying to set up their call to action. So they're going in here and saying, "Hey, we've studied this for 8 years. Do you want a copy of the studies that we have?" And they try to so they're going for that play. And I think that kind of diffuses the value. It kind of spoils it a little bit for me. What do you think, Grayson?
Yeah, so I wanted to go up to the top real quick first, just to kind of shout out the fact that they did use storytelling. And for those who have watched previous episodes, you'll know that I love using storytelling in my cold emails, especially in the beginning, because the intro is the hardest part. How do you start an email with a person that's not expecting an email? And you can either do that by kind of making some assumptions to try to hit something or catch attention, or you tell a story that can do the same thing without assuming things about the buyer. And so I want to call that out, that's really awesome. And I think out of everything in this email, that's my favorite. It catches attention while also immediately kind of showing a future vision that, if someone is looking to attract leads or to grow their client base, that would keep them reading, because that's exactly what they need, right? But I do agree that they did quickly kind of go into their pitch, and I think a bit early. You did mention that they were trying to position themselves for this report, right? It's about building clout so that when they think about the report, it's more valuable because it's 8 years of experience rather than just some random person sending over a report. But I do think the timing here could be improved. One thing that I do every time I write emails is I try to either like lead with the pain and then show a vision out, or lead with the visions and show the pain of what happens if you don't do it, and then kind of go into the rest of my pitch. When you throw kind of a value prop or like start to talk about your brand when you're in the middle of trying to kind of formulate this concept, you try to solidify this concept of here's what you should be worried about, here's what you should focus on. It can really distract buyers, because then the guard goes up. They're like, oh, is this person selling me? Or is this actually something that's worth reading? And it distracts from what you actually want to think about, which is the story you're telling, the pains you're sharing, and the vision you're providing. So that would be the only kind of big piece on there, is the structuring. But overall, I do like that, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, they have all of the pieces. They talk about pain points. They present some future states that are valuable. They have a story kind of driving it. And they end the email very well with some incentives, something to drive, motivate responses. So I got to give them that. A lot of emails that we've reviewed don't have that. Much of them only have information about themselves and then a little CTA. So I do have to say kudos for that.
Yeah, I think too, they do a good job. So there's some things like we talked briefly about what I liked about the email. And I like that they did have the bullet points of the problems and the challenges. I don't know where this template is and where people are downloading it or whatever, but the 3 bullet point problems email is going to quickly get overused. And I don't think it'll ever be completely overused where it won't work, because in my opinion, to the degree that you really understand the prospect's potential problems, you'll get a reply. I believe that. But my issue with the problems is that if you go into it, and I'll turn the share back on, we'll jump right back to it here, is that if you go in here, the problems are, so you made a good comment before about how I've outlined the 3 mistakes that I fear will hurt your sales. So it's a really strong assumption that is dangerous to make. But what I also think is difficult is the problems they're defining don't sound like problems to the buyer. So these are problems how they understand it from the perspective of the seller, right? So ignoring the impact of artificial intelligence on your sales process. Instead of saying that's you guys, that's the seller's company sitting down and whiteboarding, okay, what are our prospects' problems? Oh, they're going to ignore the impact of artificial intelligence on your sales process. What that needs to say is, what does that mean? So what that should say is something like, if I just make something up here, it should say, ignore or miss out on artificial intelligence, prioritizing which deals are going to close above others. Something like that. Like, okay, what is something that actually I could be using artificial intelligence for that you'll help me do that I'm not doing right now? Don't blanket, I'm going to miss the artificial intelligence bus, because let me tell you, I know that I haven't. AI isn't really even here yet. It's still a very new technology. So anyone that tells me I've missed the bus on AI, I immediately question. The other, advertising to the haystack and not the needles. So that's a good one. That one's pretty good. It's at least a principle that I understand, where I'm like, yeah, I think sometimes we too broadly advertise and don't focus down on the persona. We could always target better. We could always have a more targeted message. So that one's pretty good. And missing the shift to people-based marketing. What does that mean for me, though? How can you show me that I'm missing out on it without telling me I'm missing out on it? And I think we harp on this a lot, and it's interesting that this comes up very often. But I think that when you make assumptions like this that are generic and blanket, the problem is that I assume I don't have the problem because you haven't showed me that I have the problem. You can't tell me I have a problem. You have to show me my problem. And that's how, and that builds a ton of credibility with you, because look, anybody can say, hey, you're going to miss AI, or hey, you're not targeting the right people, or whatever. How am I not? What am I doing wrong now? So that's a little bit of current state to future state. You either need to A, demonstrate that you really understand my current state and why it's wrong, or B, show me the alternative future state that so then I can show myself, oh, that's way different than my current state.
Yeah. I think Keenan in Gap Selling has a really good section in his book about basically specificity when you're, I think it's specifically talking about kind of discovery with a buyer, but he makes great points out there that, if somebody says that they're going to like lose money if X or Y happens, like, okay, that's great. That's a pain, I guess. But the impact of that pain, like the way you frame that pain, like you couldn't pass that off to a manager or pass that off to another rep and they know what to do and be able to actually align with the buyer. And so it's really critical to be as specific as possible with pains. So like, how much money do you lose? How quickly? And what's the opportunity cost of what could be gained while you're like sitting here, right? And I think that's what this person could do much better. You kind of nailed it on the head with the artificial intelligence example, but there are many, 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 many pains that people can identify. I think like that's the one thing I've learned in sales is like, you can just sit down and brainstorm pain after pain after pain on a doc and do it every day and find new stuff. But what's most important is not really the fact that you're sharing pains, because anyone can make another person feel bad or feel negatively about something. But how are you framing it? And what is your expected or predicted impact on that specific persona? And an example of that is, if we were reaching out to, let's say, an IT director instead of a sales director, I mean, would they really find like a loss in revenue or maybe a little bit more like higher expenses? Do you really think that would press them more so than a sales director? I think there are big differences in the types of people that you reach out to, which also means the same pains mean different things to different people at different types of accounts. And so when you're making pains, don't just plasterboard them. And I agree that the bullet points are good. You can definitely use bullet points. It makes emails look well formatted and it kind of makes text pop, but put it in the email for a reason. Make it work together. Don't just kind of paste what you're going to paste, say what you're going to say, and then follow up and say, oh, and here's some bullet points to see if I can catch you, What do you think, Austin?
Yeah, I think so. I read the bullet points first almost every time. Depends on how your text is higher, like, your font and your weights and things like that. I mean, I might read the first line and then I jump to the bullet points, but like if your bullet points, so this is something that's probably a little bit nuanced selling to someone in sales but I feel like most people do this. That's why the list exists, why bullet points exist. I read the subject or I read something and I jump to the bullet points because those are obviously the highlights. Those are what you're trying to emphasize. And for me, I know that's where either A, your features are going to be or your pitch is going to be, or B, it's where you think my problems are. And so I read the bullet points and I'm like, okay, none of those are my problems. Put it in another folder. Move it along. And so that, you have to understand the user experience of how people are reading the emails, because your bullet points, in my opinion, are where you win or lose. You win or lose the reply in the bullet points. I might not even read the CTA. I might just reply and say, hey, yeah, it sounds, we have a problem with the second bullet point, or I might read the CTA. So when I say it's won or lost, whether or not I read your CTA and then decide on whether to take action on it is won or lost in the bullet points. Typically, if it's like this, it was like one line, 3 bullets, another line. I mean, más o menos.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think you make good points there. And I did want to quickly go over to kind of the CTA and incentives area.
Let's look at it.
Move to the rewrite. And I wanted to make a praise here that I love this like ending part of the email because this is often what I try to do when I end an email is like try to give them something valuable beyond me and my brand that I can leave with the buyer. Like 2, tie it to a future state so that hopefully they can kind of see something they can get out of it themselves with or without me. So it's not about me. And then 3, trying to diffuse the situation and make the ask as easy as possible to either take action on or respond to. And I think this person does all 3 of those. The only thing that's missing, and I'm so irritated because this is such a great ending to an email, but there's no CTA. I feel like it would have been much more impactful if you remove the "I hope you'll find this information helpful" and just get to the point and say, "Hey, can I send that report to you?" Or would it make sense to send that over?
Yeah.
Because for many, I mean, dude, I get a lot of emails and I'm a nobody. So I'm sure that like a majority of like average director level people, which is usually the decision makers that people are reaching out to, I'm sure those types of roles get hundreds a week. And so it's like, if you don't have a call to action, like people are choosing to spend time with your email and then you're leaving them to kind of figure out what they want to do. Like, yes, you're providing the report, which is great, but start the conversation. If someone's gone that far to learn about you and they already know that much about your brand, wouldn't you want to at least kind of get a response? I think that's one of the only missing pieces here at the end. Otherwise, I love the formatting of the end of this.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I love the CTA, except for the fact that there isn't one. Like, the way they close this out is great. You can read my report, no opt-ins required, learn how to do X, Y, and Z, although it's really just a second pitch of what they already pitched up on the second line. But the way it's structured, take notes, everybody. This is a great CTA. If you're trying to get me to read a piece of content that is actually valuable, the problem is that there is no call to the action. He like just assumes you're going to read it. I hope you'll find, that's why you made it blue. It's an assumption. Hey, you're going to read it, so I hope you find it helpful. No. Just ask,
right.
Hey, can I send it? Can I send you one? Can I send you the report? It's really cool. We spent 8 years putting it together. Like, I mean, that's not a hard pitch. Dude, hey, sales leader, we spent 8 years studying AI and how it can help you win more deals. Do you want to read it? And if you even give like 2 or 3 points about like, it talks about this problem, and this problem, you might have those, you might not. But guess what? There's no opt-in. You want to read it? I read reports like that out of curiosity all the time. Because I want to stay abreast of what's going on.
Trying to do. I do think that's what this person is trying to do.
I do too. I really do. I think you're right. It has good intention in the email, just a couple of places of poor execution, but that's why we have you. Because now we're I mean, I didn't write this. I didn't write what's coming up, because let's scroll down. Time for the big reveal. Here we go. Take it away. Show us the way.
All right. Hi, Austin. Sales teams often have to go up against high caliber competitors, which can overwhelm brands that aren't equipped with the team members or resources to compete. To win against larger competitors, brands are finding ways to do more with less through innovative technologies that make smaller teams faster, smarter, and more agile. Seller, which is my brand, recently published a report on how to grow pipeline, close more deals, and increase profitability with cutting-edge technology, based on 8+ years of experience helping sales teams do it. There's no opt-in required, so I'm hoping to share the report to see if it makes sense to connect further about your sales team's priorities for performance improvement. May I follow up with a link so you can check it out at your convenience? What do you think, Austin?
I think it's good. So here's why I like it. First off, what people need to understand is the power behind segmentation, because what it does is it gives you the ability to contextualize your emails. So let's say you've spent 8 years of your life slaving away putting this report together, all right? And you want everyone to have it. The problem is that everyone goes and tries to send everyone the report. Don't do that. Segment your list. So I would look at my market of potential buyers, and I would go, hey, who are people that are smaller companies that have large incumbents in the industry? Because guess what? That's our company. We have a couple of really big 800-pound gorillas in the industry. And I'd take the 800-pound gorillas off the list, right? Take them off the list. And then I would send those companies, the small scrappy fighters, this one. Why? Because it tells a story. Hey, sales teams often have to go against high caliber competitors. Big boys, big guns, big companies, enterprise, Fortune 5. Cool. That can overwhelm brands. Sure can. It can overwhelm a sales team too. You hate losing big deals. You hate losing, because guess what? You're losing to them every day. If you're a sales leader, you're getting the closed lost emails saying, hey, we lost the deal to this big competitor. If you're a rep, you're losing to them in the meeting, right? I mean, that hurts. So this is already a story I'm on board with. And then you go, hey, we got this, you got to do this. And then you say, hey, by the way, I've studied for 8 years how artificial intelligence can help you win more deals against big competitors. Because of it, because big competitors, we found that big competitors win for this reason, this reason, this reason. If you had, you didn't have bullet points here, but I'm saying something you could do if you wanted to exactly mirror it. We've seen, we've seen people win from this reason, this reason, this reason. Would you like to read a report on that? Yes, I would. That's compelling. Like that's people. I don't think people understand. Like you can provide 8 years of research, man. That 8 years. I didn't have kids 8 years ago, did I? No, my kids are 3. My oldest is 3 years old. 8 years is a long time. So, I think that you've done a really good job at instead of saying, I think this goes to show you can inadvertently sound. I think the last email was sent from a really good place, from a place of wanting to help. But I think they try to say, hey, we spent 8 years on this. It's so cool. You should read it. Whereas you don't need to lean on the 8 years for credibility. You can add that in there. You do add it in there where it says, hey, by the way, the points I'm making are good just because we studied this for 8 years. So, I mean, it's good advice. But that's all you need to have. It has to just pass the sniff test. Hey, is this advice good or is it some thought leader guru throwing out ideas?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's all you need the 8 years for. The 8 years isn't the compelling part. The compelling part is why you should care about it. So yeah, anyway, really love it. I like how you did. So, I mean, in your CTA is a slam dunk. Hey, can I send you the link at your convenience? You can just read it. The one thing that they did really well in their CTA that I wanted to give you mad props for, and I appreciate you not stealing my thunder on this, is that you do this almost every time. If for the long-standing followers of the show that love the show and tune in every week, Grayson's the master diffuser. He goes in there like the little Wall-E robot, cuts the red wire, because he just eliminates all of the social, all the mental obstacles to hitting reply. And that's what you do. You do the same thing with objections in the sales process, especially the more complex it gets. If you can preempt objections in the sales process, you win more deals. If you preempt obstacles to getting a reply from your email, you get more replies. And you do a good job by saying, hey, there's no opt-in required. I'm not putting you on a list. I already have your info. I already emailed you. I'll just reply with a link.
Yeah, I love diffusing CTAs mainly because I feel like conversion rates for hard asks back in the day were a lot higher, and I feel like I really kind of came up in the B2B sales space when that was dying, when cold email was getting a lot tougher, and kind of way outweighing cold calls and kind of going overboard with automation. And I was managing clients and writing messaging and optimizing messaging every week. And I just kept getting burnt by, trying to do hard asks, because what clients love the most is a meeting, just a direct ask. Can I have a meeting? And what I realized both through clients and internally is it's much faster and much easier just to get people to say yes to something. And then once they say yes to you, you can forever be noticed in their inbox. Because like you said, you passed the sniff test, you didn't annoy them, you didn't pitch them, and you got them to say yes to something. So, I mean, kind of going with that logic, I could follow up the next day with a hard ask, and I'd be curious to see what the data is for that conversion rate. And so that's why I love to diffuse anything I ask, and why I always overload it with value and incentive. Because I recognize that I am the disruptor. I'm sending someone an email who likely doesn't know me, has likely never seen my name or this brand before. And so I understand the hesitation. I often won't even read emails if it looks like it's from something sketchy that I've never heard of, or if it's got a very blatantly irrelevant subject line, I'll just totally skip it. And so your whole deal with cold outreach is trying to get their attention enough just to get them curious enough to then start trusting you and start to build trust with them. And so I really appreciate the praise there on the rewrite. And I just wanted to point out, if you wanted to share the screen again, Austin, that one of my very favorite ways to start out emails is this exact way, where I tell a story and I pretty much do two things. First, I use the story to paint the pain and just say, hey, this happens sometimes. And often, like, that's the reaction that I get. What you just gave me, Austin, is like, oh, yep, that's correct, which gets them to keep reading. And then I simply share a way that certain players in the industry or certain people in their position are solving that problem. I think that's a good way to not talk about your brand, not pitch them a solution, but totally sell them on the concept you're trying to like get them to understand here. So if I'm trying to get this sales team to want to be more technologically advanced and want to increase performance with AI and big data, I don't need to spit terminology about, oh, like I need to talk about AI and big data and machine learning and all these different words. Like, no, just briefly share. It's almost like a case study of like, hey, other people in your industry are doing it this way in generating results. And I think that in the past has been one of my favorite ways to construct cold messaging regardless of the industry, because it's a simple formula. You find a story that's relevant to the persona, you find a pain that goes with it, and then you figure out what top performers in the industry are doing that brings about a vision that they would want to see. And then boom, you move on with the rest of your email.
Yeah, I think for a lot of SDRs out there, so here's the thing, is you're going to be early stage, middle stage of your career, right? If you're an enterprise SDR especially, like you're not going to be fresh out of college 99% of the time. But for those who are fresh out of college or have never sold into like Fortune 500 or enterprise, complex deals, what Grayson said is money, because if you want to, so there's when you start talking about enterprise, it gets complicated, obviously, but I think a lot of SDRs struggle, even if it's not in the enterprise. They struggle with the fact that they're an SDR and reaching out to executives. So guess what? If you don't have clout that you can just put in the bottom of your signature on the email, good. Don't worry about it. You lean on the clout of the case study. So for example, I would email them with results from their peer companies, right? The companies where their peers work at, with results that you've seen or seen them achieve through your solution. So remember, they're not replying. You don't need to be a CIO, a CEO, a CFO, a CRO, whatever, to send somebody a valuable email. If you send an executive about how other executives are doing something because you have a unique perspective of the fact that they're your customer and you've seen it happen, now you can tell a story. And now you have credibility. You don't have credibility, like your status isn't raised, but you're leaning on the status of the prospect to leverage credibility into the conversation. So I think people misconstrued credibility. I could be a CEO or in my case, a CIO, right? Or a CISO, a Chief Information Security Officer. And if I say something stupid, other CISOs still won't want to talk to me. Right? Am I wrong there? Like make sure your conversation is credible. And I think you do a good way of doing that through your storytelling. If you're able to look, in some cases you can name drop, other times you might not be able to. It's okay. The value is in the context of the conversation. So you do a good job there. This is a really good email. There was one other point that I thought I was going to make, but I can't remember it. You made too many other good comments while you were talking, so now I forgot because I was too focused on.
I can close out just one piece on what you just said.
Yeah.
I just want to add that Austin made a lot of really good points there, and the only thing that I would add to his statement is that this is also a really great place to use industry stats. When you feel like you don't have the clout, or let's say that you're at a startup that doesn't have a ton of marketing support, doesn't have a ton of one-pagers and case studies, maybe you're kind of going in a little bit blind. You can use industry stats to tell a story that has nothing to do with your brand, but it gets the point across. And I use that often too. I try to, if possible, in my own companies, like I'll try to use a case study. And if I can't use a case study, if I don't have like a direct example of what I've done in that space, I go straight to finding industry stats, because that is the second most reputable thing someone would want to read, except for a case study. And they definitely don't want to hear about me, right? And so that's one of the plays that I often use when I'm trying to paint this picture of a better future vision.
It's a good play. I like that. Yeah, it's not the credibility of you. It's the credibility of your conversation. If you want to set meetings with executives, you have to have executive level conversations. All right. Well, I think that's all we have time for today. It's right about closing time. Closing time. Hopefully we don't get copyright striked. Hey, in all seriousness, follow Grace and I on LinkedIn. Connect with us. Send us your cold emails. Check out SD Revolution's website and LinkedIn page. We put out lots of great content there. I'm on there. Grayson's on there. We also have a great Slack channel full of people smarter than I am that all have different expertise, whether it's cold calls, emails, you name it. Other SDRs. It's a great community to be a part of. We'd really appreciate it if you check that out.
Yep. And I did want to drop one thing. We are thinking about doing an ebook, kind of putting together some of the advice that we have gone over the past few episodes, and trying to launch that sometime at the end of Q4 this year. So drop in the comments of like what you would want to hear about, how you would want us to like dissect this information in an ebook. Is it more rewrites? Is it templates? Is it formulas? Let us know in the comments below, because we'll be working on that soon, and I'm really excited about that.
Awesome. Well, next week our 10th episode. We hit the decade.
Next week is episode 10.
Nice.
Yes.
For a base 10 system, we move into a new column. So for those of you using base 6, we did that a while ago. But for base 10ers, we're next week. It's going to be 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And we'll see you all there next week.
Bye, everyone.